Welcome to Delay the Decay, the podcast for unashamedly ambitious people who want to live longer, lead better, and love deeper, prioritizing what matters most. I'm your host, Dan Hardy, coach, entrepreneur, and former pastor, here to help you build a life of more intentional direction, not perfection, across 5 life domains: spiritual, relational, physical, mental, and financial. Welcome to another episode of Delay the Decay, and my guest today is Drew Scholl. And Drew is the founder and CEO of Leaders on Fire. He is a licensed consultant with 7th Gen Consulting. He has over 25 years of leadership and business experience, and today he equips leaders to live and lead on purpose. Drew is an author. He's a speaker, musician, entrepreneur, husband, dad, grandfather of 2 granddaughters. He's an Ironman triathlete whose leadership is rooted in biblical principles and the pursuit of meaningful adventure. So glad to have you, Drew.
Dan, oh man, it's so good to be here with you. I love our relationship. You know, it's been months apart since we've talked, but I know that the first time we met, we just had kindred spirits. I remember connecting and with you, and in fact, I just mentioned to my wife, I'm like, remember when we met Dan from Colorado, and she couldn't quite remember, and so I started describing it, and I'm like, you know, the really fit guy that was maybe in his 60s, and it was super awesome. We connected. She was like, oh, yeah. Anyways, I was super excited to be able to have this chance to connect with you.
Thanks. Yeah, there's over time, there's a few people that I've met like once that make a lasting impact on me, and you were one of those. We met once. We were together for probably a total of 48 hours, and here we are like 3 years later. So
yeah. Man.
I have a question that I like to ask each of my guests. And here it is, Drew. What is one small step or habit that you've chosen recently that's kept you moving in the right direction? One small step or habit that you have chosen recently that has kept you moving in the right direction.
Well, it may be cheating to answer it this way. But I say it's a recent choice because I have to continue to decide. But I would like to say that my disciplines in the morning for years have been so critical to the recalibration of my soul and my spirit going into the workday. And so, you know, that time with the Lord and in prayer and in journaling has been transformational in my life. And I've been doing it for over 20 years. And the reason why it's a recent choice is because, you know, we get in seasons where things get tight, things get busy, things, you know, you can get distracted. And I have to continually go back and say, this is the most important thing I can do every day. So no matter the pressures, tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up and make that time, because at the end of the time, I'm always thankful. Never once have I ever said that was a waste of time or that wasn't fruitful, because it's such a rich time to start your morning, you know, with the Lord and calibrating your soul. So that might be a cheating way to answer a multi-decade discipline, but I still have to choose to do that discipline every day, because I know that without it, the wretched, sinful person that I am shows up more often than I would like.
I appreciate that. Tell me, what do the first couple of hours of your day look like?
Yeah, the first couple hours, so I usually get up at 5. Most of my career, I had gotten up before 5 o'clock, but I'm in a little bit different place now where I can have a little more luxury of time in the morning. So I get up at 5 a.m. I do a French press Generous coffee. I founded a company called Generous Coffee maybe about 5 years ago. Actually, I'm sorry. It's been about 8 years ago.
Okay.
I'm a coffee snob, so I get my Generous Coffee French press going, and then, man, I spend time reading, and I spend time prayer journaling. And so that's the first usually 40 to 60 minutes of the morning. And then I move into my training. And so I start with spiritual training, and then I move into physical training. And depending on the season of life I'm in, that might ebb and flow. So right now I'm doing just maintaining base in strength. And so I might only be working out for 60 minutes to 90 minutes a day. As I move closer to the Ironman races, then that volume goes up, and I have to adjust my schedule a little bit on that. But so spiritual discipline and physical discipline are the two most important things that I do every single day. And of course, part of that is also nutritional, right? What you feed yourself spiritually is so important, and what you feed yourself physically is so important. And it sets up my day to be able to go be the best version of myself I can, and to serve the Lord.
Yeah, I love it. Well, that's good. I'm actually impressed. It doesn't surprise me that you've had a 20-year discipline of reading and journaling. Over the last 40 years, I've done it off and on. Have not been consistent with it, but I vowed this year, 2025, that I was going to do the first hour I get up, I'm not going to check my anything, emails, texts, sports scores, or news. That I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read the Word. My coffee is Lavazza. I need to probably up my coffee game, and then I'll prayer journal, and for the first hour. Sometimes it's 40 minutes, sometimes it's an hour and 10, but I just want to be able to discipline myself to not think about what's out there until I let the Lord deal with what's in here. So just a really helpful discipline.
That's awesome, man. And I'm sure we could take the entire episode to talk about this, but the challenges even for me in the discipline are, again, those choices that we make in the moment. So for example, yes, the first thing I want to do while I'm waiting for my coffee might seem like, oh, what's the big deal to check a few emails or whatever, because I haven't engaged in my quiet time yet, right? I'm making my coffee and I'm waiting. But it starts the distraction and busyness in your brain. I have to decide, and that's so hard for me, I have to decide to not look at anything else because my brain starts moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and it's hard to pull that back. And so the other thing is in the quiet time is I get so inspired through my prayer journaling as I'm praying for people and praying through things that I get ideas that I believe are mostly infused by the Holy Spirit and not my flesh, hopefully, that are actions that I need to take. It might be a note to somebody. It might be an idea for something in the future. And I have to be disciplined because I go into my phone and email myself the note. And so I'm trying to look at different ways to capture that idea and write it in my prayer journal and figure out a way to organize that, because, man, some of them, I would say most of any major decisions I've made or any impactful promptings with an individual throughout my career have typically come from that quiet time in the morning. And so figuring out how to seize it without it cannibalizing your time, that's my personal struggle, because it's such a rich time and I want to start taking action, and I've got to learn how to set it to the side and get back to focusing. So I don't know if you've struggled with some of those things as well.
Very much so. Yeah, I struggle generally with solitude. I need to be reading, listening, talking, music, whatever. And I feel like what this hour in the morning for me is forced solitude, to really be able to hear from the Lord and just not the noise from outside. I love that. Yeah. Drew, you've accomplished a lot. You're 45 years old?
Yep.
Yeah, you've accomplished a lot by God's grace in your short life, and you've done a lot of different things. Could you just talk a little bit about your journey in both leadership, business, and ministry that has led up to this point today and shaped the man that you are today? Just tell your
sure,
story.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting because you're going to see how all of these things have woven together to this season in my life. And of course, along the journey, you don't know how these are you don't know what the end result is. And I look ahead 20 years, I still don't know, right, what the next season is going to be. But I'll just kind of pick up when I went to college. I went to college to do music. And so music has been a part of my life. And I went to college in Nashville, and the goal was to do music. And so what did I do? The opportunity came up to go on the road and do music and travel in a tour bus. I dropped out of school and I went to tour. But that was my dream. And so I did that for a year or two, somewhere in there. And then I got married and decided that the road life for me wasn't what I want to do with a marriage. And so our family lived back home in Indiana, and I was 21 at the time, and my family business was very small at the time, and they were looking to start a new company, and they asked if I wanted to come spearhead it. And so we moved back home to Indiana when I was 21, and just with a lot of grit and hard work and trying to figure out business and good mentorship from others, was able to build one of our diversified companies. It's a pretty successful organization to this day. So I spent the first 9 years or so of my career building that business, starting at the ground and doing all the sales and the service and the inventory and customer service, and was able to build a team beneath me into an organization that was impactful. And about 9 years into that journey, we were called by God to leave what we had built and go to the mission field. Now, in my book, I talk about these stories, and actually there's a live concert that we have on YouTube called Storytellers Concert, where I actually share this story. So if listeners want to hear more of that, they can. I'm not going to get into all those details now, but over the course of a few years, God had been putting us through some tests where we were having to answer, and it was a purging of sorts, because we built our dream home. I'd leveraged just as far as I could to build the biggest, coolest house I could afford. And I say I had a foot in the world and a foot in the kingdom, because we were tithing. We were pursuing God, but we were also pursuing self. We were also pursuing the world in consumption, and we were doing both. And I had to make a choice, and the Lord kind of teed it up that way for us. And so through a series of events that unfolded over a few years, it happened in my prayer time, in my journaling, on March 2nd, 2009. It was as clear as it could be. The Lord said, it's time to dedicate your life to spreading the good news of Christ. Now, I didn't know exactly what that meant at the time, but I knew that it meant more than just doing Bible studies at work, because I'd started doing those kinds of things in our work and was invested there. I was doing worship at our church. I knew it was more than that. And I thought a big deal would be to leave business and go work in ministry down the street. Well, I wake up my wife, and because it was pretty early in the morning back then, and I said, hey, just spend some extra time with the Lord. I'm going to stop back by from the office in a couple hours. So I stopped back by around 7 or 8 that morning, and my wife was in tears, a total wreck. And I'm like, oh, I thought she was going to quote a psalm to me, and just encourage me with a psalm. But what she said changed our lives forever. She said, did God tell you we're supposed to go to Papua New Guinea? And I said, no, he didn't tell me that. But what I heard was him say, it's time to dedicate your life to spreading the good news of Christ. And I knew in that moment she had the other half of the story. And in that moment, we just embraced, and we cried, and we said, now what do we do? What do we do with this leading that's been put on our heart? We had no intention of being missionaries. We'd gone on one missions trip ever outside of the U.S., and we weren't looking to be missionaries. I had a great, fruitful career in business. We were plugged into the community, plugged into the church. We were tithing, but we were still kind of wrestling this two kingdoms mentality. And God said, I want it all. And so fast forward through the process, we moved to the country of Papua New Guinea, a land we'd never been before. That sounds like a familiar story. God said, go. Didn't know how long we'd be there. We moved there in 2010. And I'm like, what is a business guy and a musician going to do in the jungle? Honestly, how is this going to work out? Anyways, we spent 3 very fruitful years there, probably some of the best years of our lives as a family. There's all kinds of stories I could go in, Dan, on that that were just life-changing stories. After a few years, because we went with a 2-year commitment, and then we would reevaluate, would we continue on with the mission and go through some additional training. And so we crossed that 2-year mark, and we thought we were going to go into full-time church planning and commit the next 20 to 30 years to that. That was my number one option. And very similarly to the experience that led us there, sitting on the porch outside of our cabin or whatever you want to call it, and the Lord said, now I want you to go live out church in business. I want you to take missions into the marketplace. And of course, I kind of am kicking and screaming a little bit, going, Lord, we gave everything up. We sold our home, we sold our house. I mean, we had nothing. We had no assets anymore. I had a little bit of money in a 401k. The rest of it we'd spent, and then we sold everything we had, and we kind of walked out about even with all of our assets. And I'm like, Lord, we'll go anywhere in the world. We'll go anywhere. All we need is some food, some shelter, and Jesus. And I know you'll take care of my family. But he said, no, I want you to go back into your family business to live out missions in the marketplace. So I did that and spent the next 10 years doing that. And meanwhile, while I was gone, my brother-in-law, who became CEO when I was gone, he had gone on his first few missions trips, and he had very similar experiences going on in his life. And so when I came back into the company, man, we just had a vision for what God could do if we fully yielded our business. And so, long story short, the business grew into over $100 million enterprise, multi-state location, and the vision of that company is to glorify God by empowering people to flourish. What that means for us is that their lives are radically changed because they come into a relationship with Jesus. So everything that our company was doing was all funneled towards how do we impact our employees and our customers and create purposeful profit that we can give away to advance the kingdom. And so I spent the last decade of last decade of my career at the company focused on that. And just seeing the amazing change that can happen when business leaders yield to the Lord and they view it as a stewardship mindset that I've been entrusted. It's not that I own it and I'm going to give some of it back. It's flipped upside down. And we say, no, just like a missionary. Okay, let's talk about this, Dan. A missionary, I had to raise donations. I had to raise funds for me to live. Okay, I didn't get an income. But I viewed those donations as a missionary as funds and provisions from the Lord. So why in the world, when I come back into the marketplace, why do I think because I have a company writing my check instead of a donor, that it would be any different? He's providing the resources and the funds. And that same principle applies to the business. That it is the Lord who's provided, and he's asking us to steward for his purposes. And the marketplace is a phenomenal place to do that because that's where most people spend most of their time, right? And it's a captive audience. And so as I saw this play out, about 5 years ago, I'm like, man, if I could help create other leaders to live this way and apply the principles that I've learned both in business and on the mission field, man, that could be amazing. And I said, could I develop 100 other leaders to have this kind of mindset and create other Wildmans out there? And so I decided to step out, and it took about 3 years to get in a place where I could exit the company. And I'm still one of the owners and still on the family council and the family employment committees and kind of chair of the governance stuff, but I'm not involved anymore day to day, and I stepped out to fully launch Leaders on Fire. Part of that process was writing a book called All In, with the subtitle Living and Leading Missionally. And it really was the emphasis of what's it look like to go all in, to follow Jesus and to integrate him into every aspect of our lives. And I specifically go into places in the book that a lot of people really don't want to go because it's the hard teachings that we prefer to kind of gloss over. But what Jesus is asking is for everything. And the reward is so significant both in this lifetime and for eternity. And while there may be cost, and while there may be hardship, and while there may be discomfort at times in following Jesus, the reward and the joy that comes from that is so worth it. It's so worth it. And then to be able to see the lives of others impacted is so worth it. So that leads me to the work that I'm doing now with Leaders on Fire. And how I got into 7th Gen Consulting was because our business hired Bill High 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, to help us we've built this fairly sizable business. What do we do with it to preserve the legacy? Do we pass it down to our kids? Do we, what do we do? And so he helped us establish a multi-generational focus and a lens to look through in which we can put our company into a trust long-term that will actually perpetuate in perpetuity the philanthropy efforts, the investment in the company efforts, and to perpetuate the purpose of the organization long term. So through that process, I was apprenticing under Bill, learning those principles, and built a relationship with him. And ultimately, as a practitioner for our company, ended up going, Bill's like, hey, you have the skills to help us impact companies in the way we've been impacting you. So why don't you come on board? So I went through a facilitation process and have been working with Bill through that. So now I have the 7th Gen consulting piece and the Leaders on Fire piece, which is more the leadership development side. And so that's all kind of, the experiences have all been a melting pot. And the coolest thing about it, Dan, is I've wondered where music was always going to fit in.
Yeah.
It's just had this interesting thread in my life. And as I started Leaders on Fire and built out the technology platform that we have with all the learning content, I said, you know what? I'm just going to show up as myself. And music is a part of my life. And so music is going to be a part of the learning experience. So every lesson that we have on our platform includes music and reflection. And it's a really unique way. And part of the conviction was, when learning is connected to an experience, the retention level's higher. And furthermore, when you listen to a song that's connected to some learning or experience, the next time you hear that song, what happens? I mean, I can think of when an Eagles song comes on the radio, I can go back to my specific day in high school and I can feel a moment that I had when I was listening to the Eagles back in high school, right? Like, that's the power of music and experience and learning. So that is one of the unique things, and it's really cool to see how the Lord brought all of these things into the season of life that I'm in today.
That's really cool. It's really neat to just see way back when, 25 years ago, you didn't know what it was going to look like in 25 years, and the Lord weaves together all these relationships, experiences, your gifting, your passions to shape you into the man that you are today. One question I've got for you, I've got a lot of questions, but a question I have for you is, what did it look like practically to lead, to be a leader in your business before you went to Papua New Guinea and afterwards? Like, you talked a little bit about stewardship, you talked about the two kingdom mentality, but practically speaking, what did the business look like in their mission before you went on into the mission field, and then when you came back?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, our father-in-law, who we bought the company from, way back in 2002, he challenged us to start tithing as a company. And so he kind of embedded some of these principles way early on that we started following. So we started tithing as a company that far back. And so there was some threads of this stuff happening. And like I said, I was starting to do Bible studies and different things with employees at work, but I didn't have the full picture. And I think I was also wrapped up in an achievement and doing the things I should be doing. That would be almost not legalistic or self-righteous, but maybe a little bit like that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is what I should be doing. I didn't have the heart and the actual vision behind it, and I was also still wanting to build something for myself, right? So it was more of that side of things. I don't know if employees that were there before and after would say that, oh, there was a significant shift that they saw, because it was all part of the journey. And those that have been there with us through the whole thing, they're also on that journey with us, right? But when we talk to people that join today and we share about what it was like back then, it is a night and day difference. So what I mean by that is, like, this journey that we're on, this fleeting journey, if you will, right? It encompasses things that just take time, and they're incremental adjustments over a long period of time that make something significant. And so, going back 25 years, it looks a lot different. But I think the biggest thing, was more for me, not necessarily organizationally, because I feel like God was going to do what he was going to do, and he was waiting for us to yield. And when we started yielding more than we were before and saying, this is his, we are stewards. I mean, it just exploded. I mean, from a revenue standpoint, profitability, all of that, it exploded. So the revenue growth from 2001 to 2013, that's over a course of 12 years. Let's just say I'll just give some rough numbers. Let's just say that growth was 10 million in revenue. Okay. And that was over 12 years. The next 12 years was like 80 million, right? It's significant.
Yeah.
It's significant. And it's not about numbers and growth and a formula to grow your business. If that's the attitude or the approach, it's destined to fail, and it's not going to be fruitful. We weren't doing it for that. We weren't doing it because we thought it would get us more growth and revenue. No, we viewed it as, this is the Lord's business. How do we use it to reach into the lives of our people and to create something meaningful and to create something that will generate purposeful profit that can be used for his kingdom? Now, how he produces that fruit is completely up to him. And he happened to just open the floodgates. And so much that our barns were overflowing, right? And we continued to just put it back in. We just continued to put it back in. So that, I would say, it was more of a heart adjustment that did affect the organization over time. And now it's remarkable what it's doing today.
Yeah. How do you balance, Drew, the desires? I think about even my business now, where I want to increase revenues because there's some things that, and I want to have more clients because there's things that I want to do with my family, and some dreams that we have. At the same time, I want to be focused more on the journey and doing business right rather than the outcomes. The Lord's in charge of the outcomes, right? How do you balance desires for things and places with giving the money away? Is there a tension there for you? Should there be a tension there for me and for the audience, right? Where it's not wrong to have a bigger house or maybe a second home or go on a vacation, but those pursuits alone can devour us. How do you live in that tension of building something that is valuable for your family and for generations of your family, and at the same time committing it to the Lord?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dan. And yes, that is a tension that I live in, and I would suspect most people would live in. And I think the first thing is, it's not a horizontal discussion, meaning where I'm at and where you're at. And if we looked horizontally at possessions, let's just say, for example, something we can see with our eyes, we can make all kinds of judgments about each other, improper judgment potentially, right? And so it's not a horizontal thing; it's a vertical thing. And actually, if you're in the Word and you're pursuing the Lord and you're saying, Lord, this is all yours, and what I'm doing is for you. I'm going to trust you for the fruit and to guide me in the decisions we make, and trusting your inner conviction. I might be convicted differently. I might be convicted different on how I choose to spend my money on vehicles, which we've always been kind of the practical vehicle type people. Is that wiring or is that conviction? And so I think there's some things that, if we're putting it before the Lord, we can trust the Holy Spirit to convict us and guide us in those things. Now, another piece of that, I learned this from my father-in-law, who's been abundantly blessed financially and spiritually and relationally. I mean, he's just an abundant. You would connect with him so well, Dan. I mean, he's an awesome guy. He's 73. He's done, I did his 13th Ironman with him just a couple weeks ago, full Ironman.
So impressive.
And he started him when he was 60. Yeah. He's just an amazing man. And he says, we don't buy it unless we can share it. That's his rule. So, for example, they have investment properties in Kauai, and the Lord brought these properties to him in an amazing way. Don't have time to share the story, but they had been doing marriage retreats out there and renting condos, paying for it. People only had to pay for their airfare, so they were being generous and paying for the condos. And then the Lord brought an opportunity to purchase property, right? So they've got two beautiful homes right next to each other. You can house like 30 people there. Like our whole family can go there, or you can have like 8 couples there for a marriage retreat. They host, they've had hundreds of couples now out there. And in fact, we're part of leading. We're going to lead 3 of those marriage retreats. We have one in November, and we've got 2 in January, February, where we're actually helping lead that. And so if you didn't know anything and you go, oh man, he's got whatever, $5 to $8 million somewhere in there of real estate in Kauai, you'd be like, geez, right? You have no idea about this man. You have no idea. And those properties self-fund. And the 13 weeks that they're not rented to Airbnb guests, they're used for relationships and community and fellowship and strengthening marriages and relationships. It's like the Lord's given the opportunity to steward his resources for an impact. But it goes back to this, and he says this at the beginning of every marriage retreat, because he tells the stories of how the Lord provided the properties. He says, we don't buy it unless we can share it.
Yeah.
He's also got a boat, a really nice ski boat at his house. He's not in it very often. And if he is, he's driving other people around in it. But the family uses it, and friends use it, and he lets the college soccer team take it out. I mean, he would be disgusted if the boat sat there and was only used for himself and his wife. Like that is disgusting to him. Man. And so, but again, if you look horizontally and you said, geez, he's got a boat and a lake house and properties in Kauai, this guy must be a heathen. You know, like, no, that is not, that's why you can't do that, because we have to internally grapple with that and basically have our hands open and say, Lord, this is all yours. And if it all went away, I would be okay. And if you can't answer that question honestly, then it's got a grip on you. Man. If you're trying to hold on to it, it's got a grip on you. But if you can honestly say, Lord, it's all yours. I'm so grateful for it, and I want to use it to further your kingdom, not self. Of course, there's abundance and there's joy that can come from utilizing it yourself, but it's in community with others. And so it might be a long-winded way to answer, but I wanted to use my father-in-law as an example, because I think that principle, don't buy it unless you can share it, is a good one. And it might not be universal to all purchases, right? But in general, I think that's a pretty good guide.
Share that quote you said, if you've got too tight a grip on it, what?
Yeah, if it's got too tight a grip on you, well, the question was this: if you can't say, Lord, genuinely, if it all went away tomorrow, then you know it's got a grip on you. Or you might say, Lord, all of this could go away tomorrow except that. Then that over there is the thing that's got a grip on your heart. And so I think that's how we can evaluate and go and do, am I achieving and am I fulfilling myself based off of a consumption of a good? And I think that's where we got to say, Lord, I can take it or leave it. And I'm thankful for the blessing and the opportunity, and I'm going to use it to advance your kingdom. You know, because it's not a poverty gospel. I mean, yeah, Dan, I could sell everything I have and literally go live in a trailer, and I could give a lot more money away. I could. But I would also be limiting my ministry. I mean, our house is full of people constantly. We host missionaries here. Our pool is used by families in the community every Friday. I'll come home for lunch and see like 15 kids in our pool, and I just smile. Because like, this is getting used. This is awesome.
That's great.
And all that would be gone if I was so convicted that I've got to live in a tent so I can give more money away. And I think there is a healthy balance, and it comes down to our personal relationship with the Lord, and earnestly, and I mean earnestly, putting that down for Him to convict and lead in the way that's right for us.
You know, when you shared your father-in-law's statement with me that we don't buy it unless we can share it, like those that are watching the video like saw me tear up. Like, it's, you know, I've lived my life that way. I've never like heard it said that way, and that is so beautiful. And I know it's you know, it's not everything we buy, but like when we start thinking about big purchases, we don't buy it if we don't share it. Is beautiful. What a great legacy your father-in-law has handed over to you and your wife. Would love to meet him someday.
Yeah, that would be awesome, man. I would love to get you on one of our marriage retreats, because I think you are the type of guy that could help facilitate these in the future as well. I mean, you've got the right heart and the right personality for it. It'd be awesome to get you on one of these days, and then actually be able to participate in facilitating, because he's, they're not old, but they're in their mid 70s, and they're saying, okay, how do we get other people so that this can continue? Because they'll probably put the homes in a trust and just make sure that it can all self-fund so they can continue these marriage retreats for on and on for decades.
That's neat. We do have a passion for healthy marriages. We've been married 45 years, but our marriage has been a very imperfect marriage. We both started following the Lord after we got married, but God's used every minute of it to sanctify us and to make us more zealous to follow Him together. Marriage is a sacred journey, isn't it?
Yeah, man, 45 years. Congrats on that, man. That is awesome.
Thanks. I'm an old guy. Just had my 50th high school reunion. This last week.
Man.
Talk about weird. I walked into a room full of old people. Like, what are these?
Wow. I would guess that you had the biggest guns by far in that room.
I might have. I had one guy, a Christian friend of mine, Paul. We were just talking. He says, God talks about the new heavens and the new earth. We're going to be given new bodies. He said, I'm just going to tell God tonight that I want your body in heaven. That's what he said. I said, you don't want my mind or anything else, but that was just hilarious.
No, just the body.
Just the body. That's great. Hey, talk to me a little bit about, you're a busy guy. You've got a lot going on in your life. You always have, and you always will, because you are investing in people and you're investing in your health. How do you live a prioritized life? And maybe you can speak to the people maybe in your age group, maybe even a little bit younger, that are building something significant, and they're even stewarding it well, but it's demanding a lot of their time. How do you prioritize the things that are most important when there's all these secondary and tertiary priorities that are clawing to get to your time?
Man, yeah, that's a great question, and I think I'm on that journey currently, right? And I think it's cyclical, because our life has ebbs and flows to it depending on the season we're in. And for example, having little kids, and we had 4 kids, little kids in the house, and growing a business, like that was a really tough season. And so I think if I were going to give myself advice back to my younger me, is I think that pride of achievement is what drives us to be unprioritized. I think whether it's pride of achievement or pride of acceptance or whatever the case may be, right? We're striving for something, and that's when we get out of whack. And so I find myself in these cycles where I might be trusting and doing well and pretty balanced, and then I find myself getting wound up. Like I want to start controlling more. I want the results to be better and faster, or whatever the case may be. And next thing you know, I find myself closing my fists and trying to control everything. And what happens is everything in my life gets ramped up, right? And so there's 2 things that I would recommend now. One of them is actually the Prioritized Leader program, which you're familiar with. And in fact, Dan, I just got off a roundtable. I had a Prioritized Leader roundtable going, and I just had that call today, and it was actually our last session because we finished the module. And so when we look at purpose, people, pace, perception, and profit, from an organizational standpoint, those 5 priorities are really important. If you can manage those well, then things typically will do well for you and do well for the organization and your people and all of those things. On the personal side, I am continually trying to say less is more, and I'm creating my own monster. I'm guilty of creating the chaos. It's nobody else imposing that on me. It's me. And so you have to look deep within and say, what's driving that? Am I driving for something because the result is not what I want? Do I feel pressure to not fail? Do I feel a pressure from something? Or am I trusting God with the outcome? Am I just trying to be faithful with my time? And Dan, I'll tell you, even this is a alive and well issue right now. It was 2 days ago, sitting in my office, and I sit down in my chair and I go, Lord, you have given me this day. You have ordained this day for me. You have very specific things and desires for me. And you also gave us a certain amount of time in a day. I'm only a human, and I need your power to guide me because there's too many things I need to do today. And I need you to show me which ones are most important. And I don't know if you can ever escape that. I mean, maybe later in life possibly, but I think as long as we're in a pretty active mode, I think we're going to struggle with that tension, because I am now finding myself saying no to things that are really good. And in my younger self, I'm saying yes to all the things that are good, because in hopes that it's going to lead to something better, or it's fulfilling my ego, whatever all those things are. And I'm learning now to just say no, even if it's amazing, because now I'm going, the enemy could use that as a distraction and make me unhealthy in other areas. And I've just got to be better. I've got to be better at saying yes to the most important things in my life. And so I think that's a tension that we all wrestle with, and it keeps coming back to that relationship and trust with the Lord, and really yielding the outcomes. Now, here's 3 words: surrender, trust, and accept. So I'm going to surrender my day. I'm going to trust that He's going to provide the direction, and I'm going to accept the outcome. The accept is the hard part, because what if the business result isn't what it should be? Do you clench down your fists and gain control and say, no, I've got to make this happen, and you start plowing over people and you start doing whatever? Or do you surrender? Do you put your trust in Him and trust that He's going to guide you, and that if there is a season of challenge, which there will be, and there's going to be a lot of them, how do you utilize that crucible moment or season and trust that it's a refining fire that's going to make you better? Because I know a lot of faithful men whose businesses failed. I know great inventors of our time and great inventors of the last couple hundred years that failed a bunch.
Yes.
Yet they had some significant victories amongst those failures. And so I think you mentioned earlier, Dan, detaching from outcomes, I think is one of the most important things that help us prioritize our time, because the minute we start getting wrapped up in the outcome, it changes, and we start focusing on the wrong things because we're trying to control it, because we want to control the outcome, and then we get all out of whack again. And so that's why I say it's cyclical, because I find myself in that cycle, in that vicious cycle, and because life's going to continue to throw new things, life evolves. I have a new dynamic now with grandkids. That's going to continue to evolve, and I'm going to want to make more margin for that. Right. So it's got to come from somewhere. And so I'm going to have to reevaluate that cycle again.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, it's daily reevaluation. It's annual reevaluation. It's taking an inventory of what God has put on your plate, who He's put on your plate, how much time He's calling you to invest in that. I know you're a triathlete. You're getting ready to do your 5th Ironman?
Yep, next year.
Next year. And as you know, I don't do Ironmans. I'd maybe like to try that someday. My fitness sport of choice is CrossFit, and I know that, and I compete in the Open and the semifinals, and the only thing I'm in control of is my training. But when it comes time to the Open or the semifinals, I have no control of what movements they throw to me that might expose my weaknesses, or who it is that I'm competing against that might be stronger than me or faster than me. It's the same thing in an Ironman, isn't it? That you can only control your training. Of course, and what that involves is the time spent on the road, your sleep, your diet, your mindset, but you can't control the temperature of the water, the conditions of the weather, those in your age group that are showing up, right? And I get too wound up, and I think a lot of people do, with the outcomes. Like, I should have done better, when I'm not looking at it from a realistic viewpoint. What makes me think I should have done better? If I was faithful in the training, just like if I'm faithful in life, faithful in parenting, faithful in marriage, faithful in my business, that's what we're called to, is faithfulness. And the results are up to the Lord.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that, Dan. And it makes me think of, that's exactly one of the whys I do Ironman events, because they're grueling and they're tough, but they are a spiritual metaphor. Run the race that's marked out for you. Okay, each Ironman I've done, there's been a course that I've had to follow, but the race that was marked out for me was different. Each time, I've had terrible inclement weather where a third of the athletes didn't even finish, yet I felt convicted to persevere through the challenge of the weather. I ran the race marked out for me. This last Ironman I just did about a month ago in Lake Placid, one of the most difficult courses in North America because of the biking elevation. I had a great strategy going into it. I was really conservative on the bike because I wanted to set up an amazing run. It was the most conservative bike I've done in any Ironman, and I was ready to just blow away the run. Guess what, Dan? 2 miles into the run, my right hip flexor gets angry and says, "You're not running today." I mean, it was excruciating pain. And so 2 miles in, I had to reframe it and go, this is the race the Lord's marked out for me. I've been training all year for this. And I was ready to have my best run ever. And I put in the time and the training, and I was faithful with that.
Were you able to recall that scripture right then?
Yeah, yes, because mentally, I mean, I had to dig myself out of the trenches at least 1,000 times, Dan, because I would encourage myself with scripture in that verse, and then literally 1 minute would go by, and my head would be staring down at the pavement, and I'm trying to run a minute and then walk as the pain gets high, and I get into this focus, and I'm negative, and I'm all upset, and then I have to what am I doing? And I had to reframe it, right? This is the race the Lord's marked out for me. I have a choice to persevere and to do it with joy, even though this is not the outcome I'd hoped for. Not at all. In fact, my time was about 3 hours slower than what I had hoped it would be. And so that can be very mentally tough when you've prepared for that. And so I think that's the whole point, right? That's why it's a spiritual metaphor, because you're faithful in training and you run the race that's marked out for you. That doesn't mean it's always perfect. And it doesn't mean that the outcomes are what you want, but it's about the journey getting to there. And I'm now more motivated than ever to continue training and to continue to try to have another performance next year, and we'll see what the Lord does with it. Maybe it'll be amazing, but it could also have another incident that I didn't prepare for.
Yeah, I love that mindset. I've been focusing recently on just listening to myself less and speaking to myself more. I listen to myself a lot when there's disappointment or failure, rather than just speaking truth to myself.
That's great, man. I haven't heard it said that way, but I love that. That is so true. The inner room in our head. Oh man, if we listen to our own garbage, but yet we can speak truth to ourselves, that's powerful.
Yeah. Well, we got about 2 or 3 minutes. My audience, as I mentioned, is they're men mostly who are unashamedly ambitious, and there's all kinds of baggage that comes with that ambition. But they've been called by the Lord to create and build something that is sustainable and lasting, that will benefit others, that will glorify the Lord. At the same time, they don't want to lose their life. They don't want to lose their life. They want to prioritize the Lord. They want to prioritize the relationships that God has put in their life. They want to prioritize their body and their mind, and they want to have a legacy with their finances. What would you say in closing to these men and maybe even a few women who are tuned in?
Yeah, well, I would say that, find a coach, find a mentor, find somebody who can walk this journey with you. Because I know in my own life, part of my journey was having those people in my life that when I could not see clearly, I had an objective person that was helping me move through. And some of my most transformational times in my life had been working with somebody who was able to speak truth to me, pull me, sometimes push me, and show me the path that I needed to go. And so that's, I think, an important thing. The second thing is, man, the daily disciplines. You got to have them. You just need to find a place to start and start the daily disciplines, because it's the small deposits over a long period of time that develop character, and to do that consistently over a long period of time And those would be the two things I would say.
That's great. Very good. So that's a good word and a good 45 minutes from Drew Scholl. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about direction. So stop trying to be perfect and just move in the direction that the Lord has for you. Not worried about the outcomes, just be faithful to do the work. Drew, thank you so much, my friend. I look forward to talking to you again. And if people would like to read the book, I'm going to read it, All In, A Revolutionary Call to Missional Leadership. Where can they find that book?
Yeah, that's available on Amazon. So the audiobook is available, the paperback and hard are all on Amazon.
Okay, and if people want to follow you or engage with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so Leaders on Fire is the organization. They can find that on Instagram, LinkedIn. We've got a YouTube channel with a bunch of videos. Or my social is Drew C. Shoal, and that's on the same platform.
Fantastic. Well, until next time, we'll see you on the other side with Delay the Decay. Thanks for listening to Delay the Decay. If today's conversation resonated with you, follow, subscribe, and share it with someone else on the journey. Until next time, keep prioritizing what matters most. And remember, it's about direction, not perfection.